Working on it.
No, no problem. No, no problem.
Delay.
Yeah. Do that. It's not staying up. There it goes.
Is everybody here? Everybody's here? You want to stand by?
Is everybody on?
You're good whenever we are.
Yeah, go ahead.
County City Council for January 25th, 2021 is now in session. Roll call, please.
Council President, Mr. Arcaro,
Present?
Mr. Emery,
Here.
Mr. Gah,
Here.
Mr. Kozeski,
Here.
Mrs. Ledford,
Here.
Mrs. McVoy. She on?
Seeing her on here.
Okay. Mr. Moiseo,
Here.
City Manager, Mr. Hockaday,
Present.
Finance Director, Mr. Williams,
Here.
Law Director, Mr. Smith.
Here.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to approval of the meeting minutes for January 11th, 2021. Are there any alterations or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion, Mr. Arcaro.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Mr. Emery.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy. She don't have her sound on yet. Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for January 11th, 2021 has been approved. We have an awards presentation tonight, and with us in council chambers is Eric Mempa from the Public Works Department here in the city. Eric, if you come forward, please. And Ms. O'Connell, if you could read the certificate into the record.
Certificate of Achievement, Employee of the Month. The employee for the month of January is Eric Mempa. Eric Mempa is an employee of the Public Services Department. Eric started with the department on September 14th, 1999. He is an A-rate employee and is fluent in all aspects of the Public Services Department. Eric is a valuable employee of the City of Conneaut. Signed, John Arcaro, Council President, Terry Moiseo, Council Member, and dated this day of January 2021.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Something from the applicant?
Thank you very much. Anything you want to say? If not, that's fine.
Not really.
All right. All right, congratulations again.
Thanks for coming.
Congratulations.
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 You don't have to hang around if you don't want. I mean, if you want, you can. I mean.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, you have a
Good luck tonight. It's supposed to be icy.
Yeah, we'll try to get ahead of it.
Okay, moving on to citizen comments. Does anybody have any citizen comments this evening? Okay, hearing none, communications.
I have none this evening.
Okay, does council have any communications?
I have one thing, Ms. Carroll. I did
Select-
receive an email from, yes, thank you. I did receive an email that I wanted to relate to the public and to you guys from a resident we had received complaints about a profane sign that had been hung up. The resident seemed to be upset for the fact that they read it in the newspaper and that we personally didn't reach out to them. I expressed that I was under the impression and had been told that they had been contacted and refused to remove the sign. So that I did express that. I do want to let you guys know that the flag has been removed. So I express my gratitude for them removing it. And I'm glad that it is done. But they just wanted people to know that they didn't realize that people would be upset about it. And if we would have reached out, they would have removed it sooner. So I just wanted to let everybody know that, and I'm glad that it's removed and thank them for removing it. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other communications? Okay, if now we'll move on to reports of our administration, beginning with the city manager, Mr. Hockaday.
Thank you, Council President Arcaro. I didn't know, I did get this from Nichelle, so it wasn't to City Council, but it was to the Health Department, and it's a letter from Ms. Carol Petrini. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, and she just stated that I am writing to commend the Conneaut Health Department on their timely and efficient distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine. Hearing what many other areas have experienced, we can all be very grateful to our health department for the organization and skill demonstrated during the immunization procedure. I am proud of our nurses and our nursing staff, as well as the Conneaut Board of Health. With many thanks, Carol Petrini. So I thought that was very nice, and I agree with her. So I think they've
Absolutely.
done a great job. And I just want to give a quick reminder that this week, Ohioans 75 years of age and older are eligible to receive the vaccine. The week of February 1st, it is 70 and older. And the week of February 8th is 65 years of age or more. You can pre-register at any time. You can do that by doing it one of two ways. You can either call the health department at 440-593-3087, or you can go to conneautohio.gov, which is the city's website. It might look a little different. It's a brand new website. And right there on the front page, you click on the COVID vaccine link. All you have to do is type in your name, date of birth, and a good contact number, and the nurses at the health department will reach out and schedule your vaccine visit. So all vaccines are distributed by appointment. So in order for us to be efficient in getting people through, you register, they contact you, give you a date and time, and then you show up that appointment time and you get your vaccine. I know some folks here, I think Council President Arcaro, you've had some family members go through that, and it's pretty fluid and easy to go through. So I think they've done a nice job. We've met our target goal of 80 vaccines a day, and in fact, most cases they've exceeded it. They've been 90 to 90 plus per day in doing that. So I know some people might have some questions. Why don't they schedule them out 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? We don't get notices from Ohio Department of Health in time to schedule out that far. So we don't know how many doses of vaccine we will have to administer, usually until about the week prior. So we can really only schedule out a week in advance. So if you're saying, hey, I registered, they haven't called me, why haven't they called me? It's probably because there's a very large list. So far, just on the website, not phone calls, but just on the website through today, we've had 632 residents registered just through the website alone. So that's probably close. I think we're probably close to maybe 600 people that we've totally vaccinated. So, we obviously have a very large volume of people that are hoping to get the vaccine here, and we'll get through it. I think they've done a really nice job. So if you registered or you called and they haven't called you back yet, just be patient. We're waiting on additional doses of the vaccine. And like I said, I think they've done a great job being very efficient. We have started on our second round. So those 1A class employees, such as EMS or nursing or skilled nursing staff, they're actually coming back in through this week on their second round. So we are doing now first round and second round for community members. So in another couple of weeks, we'll be starting that 1B group that got them last week. They'll start back in as well. So at some point, if we start receiving larger dose or larger portions of vaccine, and we can open it up a little more generally to the public. Right now, we're doing everything at Station 3 over at Middle Road and 20. We may have to go to a larger format facility. We haven't decided what that's going to look like yet. But for now, we're going to keep on our current path. I just wanted to relay my appreciation to Nichelle and her wonderful staff there, as well as University Hospitals Conneaut, Denise DiDonato and her community outreach corps of nurses. They have been assisting us over there at that location. So a big thanks to University Hospitals as well. So a nice team effort. I think things have gone very seamlessly thus far. We do have 2 additional firefighters there. So if somebody has a mobility challenge to get in and get their vaccine, they're there to help with that. And obviously, if anybody would have a problem after receiving the vaccine, they're there to jump in if there's any problems. So to date, we are not aware of anybody having any issues with the vaccine. So it's been very smooth sailing. So knock on wood, hopefully that continues. So in terms of other updates, I did mention the new city website. Most of the functions are up. We still have some additional modules that we're going to finish scheduling out, but things people should be aware of. There is a button right on the front page. Let's say your street lamp is burnt out in front of your house. There is a link in the little module that you follow to just report that, and that goes directly to First Energy for their dealing with that light. If you do call us, we're going to go in through the same module and type it in as you talk to us on the phone. So you can do it directly through the website, or you can still call us. That's no big deal. There is also a kind of a task list. There's a pothole on the road and you want to report it. You can report any issue in the city through the website. There's a quick link right on the front page of reporting a problem. So like I said, anything from pothole to high grass to whatever, you can type it right in there. It'll go right to that department head that's responsible for doing that piece. Cleaned it up in general. I think it looks a lot sharper. It's a little more modern. I think it's got a little more information. We are going to continue to add functionality, web pay for some of the online applications, so you'll be able to file a zoning permit and things like that online here. We still have some of the back of the house stuff to clean up and get up and running, but for the most part, it's there. I want to thank Jessica Obhoff, my assistant in my office, for putting all that together. She's done a wonderful job with it. IT is not her background, but she pulled it together and it looks very good. So I want to pass on that appreciation and acknowledgement to her for doing that. Couple meeting reminders. The Conneaut City Council Board of Education joint meeting is this Wednesday at 6 p.m. It will be via Zoom. So we will be here in this room if you want to come here. And I'm not quite sure. I'll have to confirm with Lori if they're all going to be in their room over there, or if they're all going to be online. I'm not sure what the school board's doing in terms of their meeting, but we will be hosting it via Zoom, and you're welcome to come here if you'd like to attend that. And then we have an economic development subcommittee meeting that will happen after that meeting. So that is Wednesday. One other thing important that I will draw your attention to is our water filtration and distribution. Our water distribution manager, Bob West, who left in the middle of December, he took another position with Kent State. I appreciate all of Bob's service here, but we did post the job, and we had a great slate of candidates for that replacement. And we selected Lawrence Ensman, who's a 16-year veteran of the department, as the manager. So appreciate Lawrence, Skip stepping up and doing that position. So he's been on the job. He was the acting water distribution manager whenever Bob wasn't here. So I appreciate Skip stepping up and doing that. So if you see Skip, tell him congratulations. And he's already got a couple water line breaks under his belt since he started there. So we had one last week on Old Main Road. But he's a seasoned veteran, and I think he'll do a great job for us. So those are all the major pieces. We continue to have some preliminary pre-construction meetings on the ODOT projects that are coming up. I will probably preview a long list of some of the projects on Wednesday at our joint council BOE meeting. Give you the most recent information on those while everybody's in the room. And then, of course, as we get closer to the project start, we will do probably a couple public meetings to explain the MOT and traffic control and traffic arrangements that will have to occur along with the installation of those improvements on the state routes. That's all I have, unless there are any questions from council.
Any questions for the city manager?
I don't have a question, President Arcaro, but I do want to chime in with the good job that the health department is doing with the vaccinations. I've heard from other areas and have helped some people from Ashtabula navigate some of this, and it doesn't seem to be running quite as smooth in other areas of the county as it is here. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of them. I think it's working the best that it can under these circumstances. So I do commend them and Mr. Hockaday for the website. I registered on it myself. It's easy to navigate. I encourage anybody to go on there and pre-register for vaccines. So good job. Proud of it.
Any other comments? Yeah, I just had one along those lines, a question regarding the registration. People can pre-register, they do not have to wait until their age group is called, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
And we prefer that they do.
okay. And then I would just like to say that I did in fact have my elderly mother and mother-in-law through the process today, and we were in and out in 30 minutes. Very well organized, and they're doing a fine job over there at Fire Station 3 at East Main and Middle. So. Okay, moving on to Finance Director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. I gave council a spreadsheet to review. Basically what this is a Schedule B summary that we received from the county as far as the new real estate valuation. Most people have probably received their real estate taxes in the mail and have noticed an increase. Most people I've talked to have. We did a total, or the county did a total revaluation this year. So it'll be the tax assessment for 2020, which will be collected in 2021. If you look at the top of the page, last year our market value for the city of Conneaut was about $532 million. That increased this year to $573 million, about a $41 million increase. And assessed valuation was $186 million last year. That increased to $200 million, or about a $14.2 million increase. So on average, property values in the city of Conneaut, and it could vary depending on the area and the classification of the property, it went up about 7.67%. So if you look from 2013 to 19, we were pretty consistent. We were around 186, between 185 and 187 million. There's a couple 186 million in there. It really didn't vary that much. The biggest increase we saw was when the prison was added on. That was a $25 million increase, and it stayed about that same rate until this year. If you look the next group of numbers down, from 2015 to 2020, you can see the breakdown by property class. You can see the breakdown by property class: agricultural, residential, commercial, industrial, public utility, real estate, public utility, personal property, and other. There's nothing in other, but agricultural, residential represents about 66%, or about 2/3 of the property valuation. Commercial, industrial is about 27%, and then about 5.5% for public utility. If you look at just the change in value by classification, of that 14 million, 10.5 million of that increase was within the agricultural residential, about 2.9 million in commercial industrial, and about almost 800,000 in public utility. If you go to the millages, we had inside millage of 3.63, total millage, full millage is 14.38 mills that are levied within the city by the city. So gross revenue is estimated for next year of this millage of about 2.885 million. But there are reduction factors, and those reduction factors, for those that don't know, is the levies that were passed prior to the increase in valuation have to stay at that level for the properties that were in effect or were valued at that time. So we do have some reduction factors. They are all the same for the fire levy, street levy, and police levy, because at that time, the valuations were pretty close to one another. But if you look at the police levy, the original police levy continuous, the 2.0 or 2.0 mils, that was passed in 2003 when the evaluation was about 168 million. So the weighted average reduction factor for that is 9.5% versus the others are about 5.4%. So the net reduction from the reduction factors is about 134,000, which gives you a net estimated revenue of 2.75 million. And then we also have net of delinquencies, because we're always, the county is conservative in their estimates, as are we. And so the net of delinquencies is 2.6 million is what we're intending to collect. And then you can see the effective millages there too. And as I said, the inside millage, we're going to collect 692,000, about 1.9 million on the outside levies. 3 of those levies are permanent. The street levy expires in 2022, tax year 2022. But you can see the effective millages. So we went from 14.38 full millage to 13.81 effective millage. And then I also did the breakdown by levy, if you want to see that, how it's broken down for the fire, police, street, and then the second police levy. So I just wanted to give you that update, and if you had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions for the finance director? Okay, if not, thank you. Move on to law director, Mr. Smith.
No report tonight.
Okay. Hey, anybody have a committee report is our next in line? Okay, hearing none. Liaison reports. Okay, I do have a liaison report from the Port Authority, which met on the 21st. Some of the highlights from their meeting are the lake levels are 12 inches lower and are predicted to continue to recede due depending on the weather, so hopefully that trend will continue. They've had minimal damage so far this year from the winter. They're looking to enter into a municipal lease agreement to acquire 2 new vehicles, pickup trucks, for service there at the port, and they'll be doing that from Huntington Bank. They've also applied for an ODNR and a Jobs Ohio grant for planning and facilities, and preliminary work has begun on the new marina on Naylor Drive. And that's the highlights of their Port Authority meeting. I'd like to thank the Port Authority for all the work that they're doing down there. They're moving forward. It's looking pretty good. A lot of potential, and good things are going to be happening down there. So. Okay, moving on to our ordinances this evening. We have one ordinance on the table, 8820, and 2 ordinances in first reading to consider. Mr. Hockey, is there any update on 8820 on the table?
No formal update to bring to council. We will cover this at the Economic Development Committee meeting on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our first reading ordinances. We have 2 ordinances to consider. And the first one is 0421.
An ordinance authorizing the city of Conneaut to use an employee dishonesty and faithful performance of duty policy in lieu of individual surety bonds pursuant to ORC 3.061 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, who wants to speak on that?
I can possibly address this. If you read in the whereases, the House Bill 291 authorizes the use of an employee dishonesty and faithful performance of duty policy instead of surety bonds. So a lot of positions, well, not a lot, but some of the positions within the city require surety bonds. City manager, finance director, public service director, and several in the court. What we do is we usually go through Cincinnati Insurance Company and or USI, and we pay individual amounts for individual bonds on each of these positions. Each of them has a different amount. They come due at a different time. They're different dollar amounts, and it's somewhat cumbersome trying to keep track of all the bonding and everything. What this does is it consolidates it all into the liability policy. So once those bonds expire for each of those positions, each of those people will be bonded within the insurance policy as a group. And it doesn't matter who occupies that position. There's no individual credit checks and things of that nature where you have to look into somebody's background to see if they're bondable. They're automatically bonded within the policy. So it simplifies things. It's about the same cost as it is for the bonds. And we think this is a good thing, and our insurance provider is recommending that we do it.
Any questions or comments regarding ordinance 0421? If not, is there a motion to proceed?
Mr. Arcaro, I'll declare ordinance 0421 an emergency.
There's a motion to declare ordinance 0421 an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second. Tammy.
Thank you, Mr. Ledford.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Gah?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo, the emergency has been declared.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 04-21.
So motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 0421. Is there a second?
Rick Goss seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Gah.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Gah?
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo, the three reading rule has been suspended.
I would like to make a motion to act on ordinance 04-21.
So motion to act on ordinance 0421. Is there a second?
Angel McVoy seconds.
Thank you, Ms. McVoy.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 0421 has passed. Move on to ordinance 0521.
An ordinance to amend section 943.07 of the Conneaut Codified Ordinances governing water department enforcement and not declaring an emergency.
Okay, so I'd sent out to council our Ohio EPA survey in the water department, and one of the areas that we both got a recommendation and a warning on was the backflow program. We've had a couple customers that have not consented to the backflow program. Essentially, there can be some residential applications such as trailer parks and so on and so forth. That's usually not the issue. The issue is commercial operations. What backflow does is it prevents water that comes into your building getting cross-contaminated, then by some industrial process being forced back out to the public main to be consumed by somebody else. So backflow is a very important program. We've had some people that haven't wanted to comply. What this does is it establishes those rules by which we can gain access vis-a-vis an administrative warrant process to come in, that we have a right to inspect our system to make it safe. So this is just to come into compliance with those Ohio EPA recommendations. We do not need to pass this tonight, so I would encourage you to put it into a first reading, possibly even send it over to the Utilities Committee if they so choose. This is fairly standard. This is not something that would be any different than any other public water system. So it's in a draft. We also want to be able to get back to the EPA and say, hey, we've started to do these corrections that you've asked for. So that's all it is. It's nothing too mysterious. It's just we need to make sure that we have the right to control our system, and we've spelled out what that system of rights looks like if you don't want to comply as a commercial customer to a backflow inspection or check.
So this only applies to commercial customers?
Largely. Now, it can be in some residential applications, such as a trailer park that's master metered or a condo complex if they're master metered. There could be some residential applications, but the rules are the same. It's a backflow system, like an RPD valve, and then they have to have it annually inspected. So you would call Burdix, and Burdix would send a licensed inspector out. They'd test it and send us a certification. It costs about $95 a year. Anybody who's ever owned a commercial building has been through this process.
And then the other question I have is that in section F, I'm assuming it's been deleted, looks like it's been deleted, about violations of the ordinance being fined at $500, $100 per day, reserves the right to terminate service, so on and so forth. Then it looks like persons found violating the rules and regulations set forth shall be turned over to the city law director for prosecution. That's been deleted, is that correct?
We do that automatically.
I'm sorry?
I say we do that automatically. You have to have an ordinance to that effect. If there's a violation of a city ordinance, we get involved.
Right, but that's out of this ordinance, that's been deleted.
Right, it's superfluous language.
Okay.
It doesn't mean anything.
Okay, that was kind of my question.
In fact, if you added that language to every ordinance you have, you'd have another big book full of it.
But that was in the ordinance.
It was in the ordinance, and it's
Now we're
not
taking it out.
necessary. Yeah, it's not necessary. And the previous fine was $5 a
I was
day.
going to say, that's
That
not a
was
typo,
$5, which is
$5?
nothing.
Wow.
I thought it was 500.
No.
It was $5.
It's $5.
Okay.
That's definitely not
It needed looked at.
conducive.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of this stuff happened 30, 40 years ago, and it kind of gets buried in the legislation, and then something pops up, and oh, look at that. So,
Okay. All right, with the recommendations from the administration, is there a motion? Or any other questions?
I'd make a motion to move it to second reading.
Okay. Ordinance 0521 has been moved to a second reading. Okay, that concludes our ordinances tonight. Rather sparse for this evening. Move on to unfinished and old business. Hearing none, move on to miscellaneous business.
Mr. Arcaro, I'd like to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Mrs. Ledford.
I'd like to thank Mr. Hockaday for the setting up of the vaccine. He did help a lot and helped it right along. I'd just like to thank him.
And Mr. Arcaro, I would also like to thank the Law Director's Office. I reviewed the comprehensive annual report again, and there was a lot of work that the Law Director's Office has done this past year, 2020, and I just want to thank them for, and the staff for all their work during 2020, and with everything else going on. They went above and beyond, so I wanted to thank them.
thank you. I'll pass that on to the team.
Fine job. Any others for miscellaneous business? I would just like to thank City Manager's Administrative Assistant Jessica Obhoff for her work on the website. If you haven't had a chance yet to peruse that, please do. It's a tremendous improvement from our old website for sure. And there's a lot of information and a lot of things that the public can do on there to get in touch with City Hall that makes it a lot easier than it was before, so. And there's some interesting descriptions on there as well, too, which is something new, so. Take a look at that.
And to that end, if you see any issues or errors or whatever, let us know so we can get it cleaned up. It's been live for about 2 weeks now. So it's relatively new. So if you see something or you click on something that doesn't work the way you think it should have, just let us know. We'll get it taken care of.
Okay, if there's no other miscellaneous business. entertain a
President
motion to
Arcaro?
adjourn. Yes.
I was trying to hit my unmute. That's the, ongoing hilarity for 2022 or 2020 and 21. I just wanted to announce that there's an economic development meeting. I believe Mr. Hockaday had mentioned it on Wednesday after the joint school board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other miscellaneous business? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Rick Goss seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.